Alright, so in this video I'm gonna go over some dioramas I made for the game LEGO Bricktales. The demo maps are largely designed to give the players a bit of rest from the LEGO brick building activities otherwise in the game, and instead give them some simple explorative dioramas with simple activities such as collecting pickups or solving small puzzles using their in-game skills in order to obtain chests or other rewards. I will mostly weigh in on how they use unique walkable pathways, how the block out and decorations are placed to work with the camera, and exposing certain elements to create player incentives, and also the lighting and atmospherics. The first diorama is a cave in the Caribbean world. The player enters the diorama slightly elevated, facing a broken bridge and looking over a skeleton on a small island in the center of the scene. It presents the player with a simple environmental story, implying the bridge broke by walking upon it, and the figurine has been stuck down there since. A stairway is peeking out on the side, and as the player walks here, the terrain and decorations have been elevated towards the camera in order to create a stronger parallaxing effect. It helps making this small diorama appear a bit bigger, and keeps the pathway from becoming dull by revealing the new environmental details gradually. The pathway was set to take the players from the lit areas and through the concealed dark lit areas as they explore the alternate path, and then be led into the light again. The atmosphere here was given the characteristic blue and green, and light shafts peeking down holes in the ceiling that highlights the player entrance, the bridge and the exit area, and also the storytelling element on the island below. The player is not forced to return this way later in the level, so forcing the player to walk along the longest possible path along the edges of the diorama will not later be a source of frustration for the player. There are two player activities here, a crate break blocking a bird pickup and washable dirt blocking a chameleon pickup. The activities in this diorama was kept light in order to offer the player some rest before encountering a more challenging construction spot in the upcoming diorama after this. This next diorama is also set in the Caribbean, and this particular diorama is set in a part of the level where the player is on a bit of a fetch quest. And so for this diorama the player gets more advanced activities to make that run back and forth more varied in terms of the tasks. In order to incentivize the player, instead of the storytelling piece in the previous scene, in this scene the center is dedicated to a chest that is hard to miss. And in order to get it, the player has to run around the diorama and flip some switches. For this reason, one of the switches has been placed directly where the chest is in view in order to nudge them into starting the activity. The player will also return through this diorama on the way back from the fetch quest, so if they did not feel like doing the activity the first time around, they can be re-incentivized to do it again on the way back. And considering the player will pass through this diorama on the way back, the pathway from the entrance to the exit on the way back has been kept deliberately short. And this is done because there's not much happening in the game anyway besides walking back and forth. So this is done basically to prevent prolonging the pathway until it becomes an obstacle for the player on their way back from the fetch quest. So this third diorama is also in the Caribbean, so I will keep this pretty short. So this third diorama opens up with two different pathways, one leading the player down to the water where there is a hidden pickup, and the other one leads the player through an arch of the level terrain. And the player will still be given a second chance to spot the concealed area from above as they pass this area. The main idea of this diorama was to give the player a bit more of a playful pathway here, not just a ladder that goes straight up to the exit, just have them search around through the arch, walk around the bend, and find some pickups along the way, just to make it a bit less straightforward. This particular diorama has less water than the other ones, so the atmosphere is more dominated by the warm sunlight and less of the blue and green. But it is also lit and occluded the same way as if wandering through the sand rock caverns, so the sense of place is still there. So finally a theme change. This fourth diorama is set in the medieval level. The diorama is decorated as an old castle ruin, and it's hidden on the ground underneath the castle. This diorama is placed in a part of the level where there aren't a lot of brick building activities, and so another chest is placed directly in view here as you enter it, just to incentivize a more advanced chest collecting activity. The diorama was blocked out to have more of a crypt-like pathway underneath, with some parts of the pathway occluded by the terrain, such that the player needs to look around for ways to get there. The stairs are briefly revealed here, but not too obvious. The peripheral vision is not really tuned to detect brightness like this. It needs to have some sort of motion or some sort of dynamic. But the light here is sort of used to help create some high contrast lines along the edges of the terrain here towards the backlight, which could help the player notice it. As the player walks around the corner here, the diorama splits into multiple pathways. The way to the chest is through the archway, but even if the player chooses to go up the ladder, they can still see the chest from the angle up there as well. If the player moves through the archway, the stairway is largely hidden here as well, with just some minor visual aid, using the lighting to give the stair steps different value and hue. The camera doesn't make an effort to reveal the pathway to the left here, but for players who are observant, by noticing the crypts on the side of the diorama, they can try to move left, and then get rewarded by finding the whip. And the whip is an object which is treated a bit of like a hidden pickup throughout the various levels of the game, because it allows the player to backtrack and pick up some pickups which was not navigationally available at the time without the whip. When it comes to atmospherics, the diorama uses sunlight through the cracks in the ceiling, and it uses a purple atmospheric color, almost like an accent color, to play with the magic and wizard themes that is part of the medieval storyline. Among the indoor dioramas, this is among the bigger ones, and as the players obtain their skills throughout the game, they can come back here and explore every nook and cranny of it in order to get all the pickups. Due to the crypt themes, the backside, down the passage, the diorama becomes a bit labyrinthian, appearing a bit chaotically built over time and since forgotten. It is meant to buy into the sense of mystery and magic in a medieval fantasy setting. And now for the fifth and last diorama of this video. It's part of the jungle level. And this is the level that we made first of all of them, so we still had to learn how to build levels properly, but it is what it is. So here the player is tasked to find a way up and free the dangling pallet. And so the centerpiece of this scene are those figurines. The pathway up here is heavily occluded, so the player must navigate through hidden paths in order to find a way up to the ladder. But it is not made to be challenging, just pushing them to go through the hidden and occluded areas and make the players slightly disoriented, as when exploring naturally formed jungle caverns. To allow the players to reorient themselves, the figurines are revealed around the following corner, as we want this sense of disorientation to be very short. The upper floors have two alternative exits that leads to adjacent dioramas. So this diorama eventually connects the other two and acts like a shortcut. So the pathway between the ladder above and the gate on the left is again deliberately kept very short in order to create the easiest pathway possible for the player later on as they come back to the jungle level for the pickups and need to move across the dioramas. Atmospherically, the indoor jungle dioramas were lit to seem as humid and warm, and a lot of leaves and vegetation was put on the shadow casters here, just to convey the density of the jungle, including with the vegetation that is placed around what would have been the cracks in the ceiling of this cave.